At this part of the church year, we begin reading a continuous reading from St. Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. One of the reasons is because we're coming to the end of the church year. Ordinary time has 34 weeks, and here we are in week 29. And the reading, the letter to the Thessalonians is an important one because it has much to say about the second coming of Christ. But there's another reason why 1 Thessalonians is so important, and it is this. It is the oldest part of the New Testament. It is the oldest existing Christian writing, written about the year 50 A.D., 20 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus, and roughly 20 years ahead of the earliest gospel. And one of the very first words that we hear from this written record of the Christian past, they are words of gratitude. St. Paul says, "We give thanks to God always for all of you." And these heartfelt words of gratitude will continue off and on for much of this letter that he wrote, which suggests to us who hear these words proclaimed afresh that the very beginning of our encounter with God, and indeed our encounter with each other, our fellow believers, ought to take place in the context of gratitude. We should begin our personal prayer by expressing thanks to God for what we have received. Being grateful is never out of season. The centrality of gratitude is also expressed in every celebration of the Mass. The Eucharist means to give thanks. And so, as we begin the Eucharistic prayer with the preface, we hear these words proclaimed. It is our duty and our salvation always and everywhere to give you thanks, Lord, Holy Father, Almighty and eternal God. It's interesting to note, I don't know whether this has ever happened before, but there's going to be a beatification of a person who is on his way to canonization in the state of Michigan, in Detroit, on November 18th. Father Solanus Casey, who was a Capuchin friar, which means he was one of the great orders of the Franciscan orders, the Capuchins. He died in Detroit in 1957. And the Cardinal Prefect for the Congregation of the Causes of Saints is coming to Ford Field to beatify him, which is the next to last step to being canonized. Why do I bring Solanus Casey up? Well, he had a remarkable saying that has remained very, very true and very, very inspirational over these years. And what he said was, give thanks to God ahead of time. Give thanks to God ahead of time. And that means living with a spirit of gratitude, being on the lookout to recognize the blessings and the graces that God sends our way each and every day. And so that really is the question that our letter to the Thessalonians poses to us today. Now, what part does thanksgiving play in my personal spirituality? Very important question for our spiritual maturity. And so as we celebrate this wedding anniversary Mass, we realize that our married couples have journeyed to the cathedral today to give thanks. Their faith in God has remained intact over the years and has grown stronger. How natural it is for them to gather with the community of thanks at the Eucharist to express their gratitude to God. They recognize the blessings of marriage and family life, though these blessings have been tested in the crucible of unforeseen circumstances and human weakness. Mature love is always a decision, a commitment. And this is reflected in today's rite of marriage in the Catholic Church, where husband and wife will say to each other in turn, "I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health. I will love you and honor you all the days of my life." Pope Francis, speaking at the World Youth Day in Brazil a number of years ago, had this to say about marriage to youthful Catholics. He said, "Saying yes forever to one spouse is a revolutionary act. Not knowing what tomorrow will bring, husbands and wives can rely upon the grace of the sacrament that they have received on their wedding day. Saying yes to each other, even when it is difficult to say, bears much fruit in the world." To those of you who are married, remember these beautiful truths about your vocation. Especially to those celebrating significant anniversaries, we congratulate you. We thank you for your witness. We salute all the good, all the joy, all the happy moments of your life and love together that has brought forth so much. You are powerful witnesses indeed to our Creator's wisdom in making us male and female, and in giving us the vocation of marriage, a beautiful call to holiness. May God bless you with ever-growing love and health, happiness, and peace in the days ahead.